Cooper, and this week I'm going to teach you how to do some basic financial calculations and how they would apply to a specific asset that I'm actually working on right now. So this is kind of a two-parter. One, I'm going to introduce an asset that I'm currently in the process of buying this upcoming week, and how you would use these numbers to come up with your financial metrics. So this asset's in St. Louis. It's a small little duplex. It's the white building right here. It's a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. It's currently a non-performing contract for deed. It is occupied, and the UPB is $25,611. The fair market value is anywhere from $46,000 to $64,000. The P&I, the monthly payment, is $297.10, and they last paid on December 20th, 2018. So they're a little over a year late, but they've been trying to make payments recently, so hopefully we can get them caught up, and this will be a really nice win-win for everyone involved. All right, so I transferred some of our basic stats over here, and then we've got our profit metrics column over here, so we can start calculating our financials. The first thing that you're going to want to calculate, and it's what I calculate, would be the potential ROI. And to do that, you either need to know what your accepted bid is, or preferably you're doing this ahead of time and you know what the bid that you're going to submit is so that you can calculate your potential ROI. We need to put in our bid, and our bid was accepted at basically 50% of the UPB. So here's our bid. And so what we're going to want to do to just calculate the basic ROI, and this is what most people in notes will do, is you're going to take 12 times the monthly payment, then you're going to divide it by your accepted bid, and this would give you your initial one. Now, to get your total ROI, you would want to have some expenses added in, and we'll get to that here shortly. But so initially, our ROI that we were thinking we were going to get if they reperformed would be 27.84, not quite 28%, which is a pretty good ROI considering that it hopefully wouldn't take too much work. You know, if you're buying right and you're buying assets that are where you could tell people are making payments recently and they're trying to get back on their feet, hopefully about half of those will reperform, and if they do, then that's pretty low-hanging fruit for you. You bought that at a discount and basically turned it into a performing note, and then you're getting, you know, well over 20% for it, so that's pretty good. And this will go down as we get to expenses, but let's go ahead and continue. Now we're going to calculate yield, and ROI generally is considered a backwards-looking calculation. It's what you received, and yield is looking into the future. A lot of people will use them interchangeably, which isn't technically correct, but usually won't get you into too much trouble. The big thing that you need to keep a mind on is that if you're calculating yield properly, that will calculate you to the end of the note. So if it's a low balance note, you definitely want to use yield, because you could have a high ROI and a low yield because you may not get paid out. The longer the term of the note, the more likely, the closer ROI and yield will be. But if it's towards the end and you only have 5 years left, your ROI could be really large, but then your yield could be small because you're having to take so much of each payment to try to recoup your initial investment amount. And hopefully that'll make sense as we continue on here, and we'll change some figures, and that'll really illustrate it. So to calculate yield, we need to know a few things. We need to know the present value, which would be our UPB. We need to know N, which is the number of terms, which would be months remaining on the note. We need to know the interest rate. On this, it's 10%. You need to know the future value, and for all notes, that should be 0. And then finally, we need to know our payment. Now, the nice thing is, a lot of times when you get non-performing stuff, you'll get the total term of the loan, but it could be potentially pretty hard to calculate how many months are left because they could have a lot of skip periods where they weren't paying. Well, if you know all of these but one, you can calculate the other. So we know everything but N, so we can calculate N. All right, so let's start plugging these numbers into our calculator here. I've used this calculator before, financial or fncalculator.com, and it works fairly well. So the present value is going to be $25,611.12. The payment will be $297.10. Future value is 0. Interest rate is 10. And we don't know our period, so we calculate that. And the reason this is negative is because I didn't make the payment negative. You need to make the payment negative because then it knows that it's subtracting that amount from the UPB. So we have roughly 152.69 payments left. So now that we have all of our numbers calculated for us, we can do some other proper yield calculation for ourselves. Since we are actually buying this cheaper than the present value, what we would do is we would adjust the present value to our bid. If you knew what your expected expenses were going to be, you would add that into your bid, and then you would put that in as the PV. So right now we're going to put in our accepted bid amount of $12,805, but more than likely it's going to cost us more than that because we're going to have transactional fees, we're going to have legal fees, we're going to have special servicing, borrower outreach, things like that. So what we're going to do now, though, is we're just going to go ahead and remove this, and we're going to copy and paste. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to substitute our accepted bid price in for our present value. And now what we're going to do is calculate our yield. So you'd go to annual rate, click on the rate button, and that gives us our yield, 26.898. So if you look here, we've got our yield in and our ROI. Now we can compare. Since this is a longer term note, these are actually pretty close, which is good. Again, you may not necessarily need to calculate yield if they're longer term, but if they're shorter term notes, you definitely want to. And in fact, let's go ahead and demonstrate that right now. So we're going to create a short-term loan here just to do some quick calculations. So we're going to say the loan's worth $10,000. It has 60 months left, which would be a 5-year loan. We're going to say it's 5% interest. Future value is going to be 0. And we'll calculate what our payment would be here. So we calculate our payment. It's going to be $188.71. All right, so now we're going to calculate it that we bought it at, that it's a performing note, and we're going to buy it for 80% of its current value. So we're going to pay $8,000 for it. So our ROI would be 12 times our monthly payment of $188.71 divided by 8,000. So our ROI is 28.31%. It's very good, especially for a performing note. But let's calculate our yield. So we substitute our 8,000 price in, and then now we're going to calculate our annual yield. So we're going to hit the rate button. That gives us 14.616. So if you're looking at these, 14.62% is still a very good yield, especially for performing, but that's a pretty big difference between the two there. If you're just doing a basic ROI calculation and then you go to do your yield calculation, it's over 10% difference there. That's pretty significant, and we haven't even included in expenses yet. So you could have thought if you just looked at the ROI, you'd think that you're getting an amazing deal. But since we only have 60 months to recoup the cost of the investment plus all of our interest, it actually really, really hurts the yield. So ROI is not everything. Don't get tricked into that, because again, I've used this example several times. If you make an investment of $100 for 1 year and you get $50 back, that's a 50% return. But if you don't get back your initial investment, then it doesn't matter. So if you invested that $100 1 year, you get $50 back, and then you never get another penny from it, you made 50% on your money that 1 year, but you still lost $50 overall. It would take $50 to get you back whole, let alone get you any actual return on your money. So it's good I like to calculate both. Again, longer term, it shouldn't matter, but that's how you do it, and you want to get pretty good with a financial calculator, and it's not hard.